2020 hit pageants hard. And whilst everyone else is talking about how to walk, how to talk, and how to dress, no one's answering the real questions like, what should I do when I've lost all motivation? How can I regain my confidence? How do I pick myself up after a soul-destroying pageant experience? Or should I even be doing pageants in the first place, especially after 2020? It's time to make sure your inner game is as strong as your outer game. It's time to make sure you're aligned so that you're pulled towards your goals rather than being pulled apart. It's time to put that imposter syndrome to rest once and for all. I'm your host, Adrian Kwan, and welcome to the Pageant Boss Podcast. Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Welcome to Pageant Boss episode 26. In today's episode, I wanted to talk about how to deal with a pageant loss. Now, when I say a pageant loss, I mean that could be anything from coming first runner-up to coming stone cold last. When I say loss, I'm talking about when you don't do as well as you had hoped at the pageant. And I'm not just talking about that little bit of disappointment. I mean, when you lose, and again, it's in inverted commas, when you lose, it can be anything ranging from a mild disappointment. There might be actually some people who really don't worry about the results at all. That is not the case with myself. I'm competitive at the best of times. It can range from minor disappointment to kind of soul-crushing despair, and anywhere in between. This is why I say, if you're going to go into a pageant, the best attitude you can have is that you could put in all the work. You could dedicate hours and hours of your time, hours and hours of your energy and your soul, and that has to be enough. The journey that you go through in doing that has to be enough, because you still could come stone cold last. And if you have any doubt of this, I'm sure all of you will know at least one pageant queen who you honestly feel should have done better or should have placed better. You might be in that situation yourself right now, or you may have been in the past. I mean, when it comes to the recent Miss Universe, a very popular pick on this one is Natasha Joubert. I don't know if that's how you pronounce her surname, but that's how I'm going to pronounce it. Miss South Africa, the South African contestant, and everyone thought she was a surefire, going to at least make the top 20/21, as did I, and she didn't. And she certainly was disappointed by it. You could tell in her social media posts afterwards. Having said that, she certainly didn't start pointing fingers and causing a fuss. But I felt like this was a good time to talk about these sort of losses that we take quite personally, because I've recently been through a similar situation myself, and it was to do with the entrepreneurial space, an industry called affiliate marketing. And if you've been following me on TikTok, then you probably know about this. If you haven't, basically there was a group, call it an audition, for 100 people to join the beta group or the test group for a new program that was designed to teach people how to create online businesses, specifically online businesses that didn't require an injection of cash at the beginning. If you've done any sort of multi-level marketing, MLM or network marketing, very often you will know that you can make money, but sometimes you have to buy starter packs or quite significant starter packs. And it could range anywhere from, let's say $20 to hundreds of dollars just to get started. So I wanted to join this group because, frankly, I wanted to be able to promote it to you guys and say, hey, if you want to start an online business, here's someone who's got a range of ideas how to do it. So I auditioned for it. When I say auditioned, I had to stitch a TikTok, and TikTok's still certainly not, let's say, my most natural purview in terms of social media. I did it. I went for it. Didn't get in. And the reason I'm going to say that it's similar to a pageant loss is because when you audition for something like that. They give you certain things that they're looking for sure, like social media followers, but it wasn't just that. There were other bits and pieces that you're never really going to know what criteria you're being judged on. And also you're not going to know how well they scored you or graded you for each of those criteria. All you know is whether you made the cut or not. And that's why I say it's very similar to pageantry, because in pageantry, as you will well know, very often, let's say there's a stage component, and let's say default ones are, so you have a swimsuit or a fitness component, you'll have a gown component, you'll have some sort of interview and or on stage component. So you kind of know, okay, I need to know how to present, I need to know how to walk, I need to sort out my wardrobe, etc. But beyond that, it's very rare in the pageant world that you are told, well, I think it's quite often you'll be told the exact scoring criteria, but it is very rare in my experience that you get told exactly what you scored in each section. And by the way, that's one of the beefs that I have. I don't think it should be like that. I think the scoring should be completely transparent. I've heard some counter arguments to that, but I don't think they are strong enough to warrant obfuscating the scores. In my case, this is different. We're auditioning for a beta group. I don't expect to even be given a score, just to be told whether you made it or not. But back to my original point is, you lose. I lost, let's say, because I didn't make the group. And because you don't exactly know why, it's very easy to take it the wrong way. And when I say the wrong way is you don't start going, okay, that's an opportunity, that wasn't meant for me. And in this case, the opportunity was still open for me because there's another group and there was a way to get in anyway. And I did take that up. But you start questioning not what you did so much as you start questioning yourself and your self-worth. Now, that's a very dangerous line to cross. And I compare this to a competitive sport like tennis, where, I've seen examples of heartbreaking losses in terms of professional players going at it. I don't know if you're a tennis fan at all, but if you remember back in 2019 when Roger Federer was playing Novak Djokovic, and obviously Federer is nearing the end of his career, and Federer was serving for the match and had 2 match points and lost it from there. That's certainly heartbreaking. But because it's tennis and because the rules are so black and white, you got to abide by the rules. You got to hit the ball over the net, you got to hit it within the lines, and you have to win a certain number of points. Because of that, even though it might be heartbreaking to accept a loss, you can at least go back to the drawing board and say, okay, I lost because of this. So I need to get stronger, or I need to get faster, or I need to do better under pressure. In pageantry, and in my case with this beta group, you don't have that information. All you know is that you didn't get in, which kind of then can make you feel like all you know is that you weren't good enough. And it's a very, very dangerous place to be. Because it's not that you weren't good enough. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough, as much as it might feel like that in the moment. What it means is that you weren't the right fit. And that can be as much of a comment on the pageant that you're going for as much as it is on you. You could be an amazing person, and I choose to believe that you are. You're imperfect, but when most of you go into pageants, you've done amazing work. And you just might not be the right fit for the pageant. And sometimes I will say, and you well know this, different pageants look for different things. And sometimes some of you don't focus on the 20% that will give you the 80% in results. For example, if the pageant is largely based on your on-stage performance and not so much on everything else, such as, let's say, an advocacy or charity work or platform, then there is very little point, unless you have nothing else to do with your time, doing 1,000 appearances, which I've heard very often in the UK, not so much in America or Australia or the other countries that I've worked in, but a lot of you guys in the UK, you have this idea in your head that if I do 100 appearances or 1,000 appearances, somehow that is going to make it more likely that I win, when maybe there's only 5 points out of 100 for those appearances. And even though, yes, you want those points, there is a maximum of, let's say, 10 appearances that count towards those 5 points. So you do your 10 appearances, you get the 5 points. Why then are you doing 100 appearances? Now, you're doing the charity work. I'm certainly not going to slag that off. But if you are truly focused on winning the pageant as your primary goal, and you know that, let's say, 75% of it is the on-stage component, I would be dedicating at least 75% of my time on making my stage presence as strong as possible. That's what I mean. You focus on the 20% that gets you the 80% of results. It's called the Pareto principle, and it applies to more than just humans. It applies in nature as well. But generally, look at any given person, how they spend their time and their energy. It's really only 20% of what they're doing that's giving them the majority of the results, and the rest of it is kind of filler activity. So when it comes to your pageant, because it can differ from system to system, and it often does, you really want to focus the bulk of your effort on majoring on the majors. You don't want to major in the minors. If your pageant has literally no scoring for advocacy or platform or charity work, then if you are doing that charity work anyway, it needs to be because it's who you are. It cannot be and should not be under this sort of delusion that, I'm going to do it and that makes me a more worthy winner anyway, so that means I'm going to win. Because this other girl, she's better than me on stage, but she hasn't done any of that stuff, or she's only done half of what I've done. That's where you need to look at the scoring system and not make up this story in your head that, I'm going to do 1,000 appearances, I'm going to do 100 interviews, I'm going to do all this other stuff, and that means that will make me a more worthwhile winner, and therefore I should win. When you look at the scoring criteria, it literally says, for example, 75% of it's going to be the on-stage judging, which means that 75% of the score, and let's face it, when it's 75%, if you do badly in it, you're really not going to win, are you? But really, the 75% of it comes down to the 1 minute, the 2 minute, or the 3 minutes you might have on stage, and that's it. Now, I don't care what anyone tells me about judging, right? Or role models and how important it is to be a good person in pageantry. All of that has its place. But when it comes down to a judge who doesn't know you, judging your pageant performance just on that on-stage component, and let's say you've got a minute and a half, let's say your gown walk, your evening wear walk, you might have a minute and a half your fun fashion wear if you guys have that, and then you might have, let's say, another minute and a half on your swimsuit walk, and that's it. They can't tell how worthy of a winner you are or how much charity work you've done. And you literally don't say anything. So they don't get a chance to know what your advocacy is. I mean, they might have it down on a piece of paper, but when they're judging you on that on-stage component, that's all they're focusing on. You have to get away from this idea that, but I've done 100 appearances, so that is going to somehow affect my on-stage. No. In fact, if that's happening, that's really bad judging. The judges, now I understand if you've made a good impression in interview that it subconsciously may have an effect on how the judge perceives you. If it's the same judge judging you on the on-stage component, and I'm not saying that's rigged, what I'm saying is if you've made a favorable impression, people tend to score you more highly. This is a very real-life a very real-life manifestation of this sort of idea that when we see attractive people by societal standards and how our brain is programmed biologically, and this is not to comment on what's attractive and what's not, and it's not even saying whether this is right or not. This is simply how it happens. When we see attractive people, we tend to think of them as being more successful, more intelligent, and probably wealthier, when they might be side by side with someone who is performing better than them in all those areas. But our brain is such that we're wired as the way that if we see someone who we think is attractive, we just assume they're smarter, they're funnier, they're more successful, they're more intelligent, they're more creative. Or you could say differently, if you have two people who say, let's say, exactly the same thing to you or crack the same joke, let's say, to you, and one of them, again, by societal standards, is more attractive than the other, you're probably going to find the attractive person funnier than the less attractive person. That's just the way our brains are wired. So, yes, interview can affect runway or on-stage part, the on-stage scoring, but that's a very small and slim margin. And that's certainly not to say that, okay, if I need to do 10 appearances, let's say for my 5 points or 10 points, I don't know that 100 appearances are worthwhile in terms of your time investment. I'm not saying don't do them, because if you really believe in the charity work, then do it. What I'm saying is don't be under the delusion that, oh, this girl did 10 appearances. If I do 100, then I have to win. Because that's not written in the rules anywhere, right? That if you do more appearances, you're going to win. So it does make it tough. I've sort of gone a bit off track here, haven't I? It does make it tough when you take a loss to know exactly what it is you need to work on, or even if you're going to work on it, because you may not want to participate again. I mean, look, the first thing I would say is if you take a tough loss, you need to take time off. You need to take time off from social media in particular, because there will be people, it's almost, regardless of what people say, it's really not going to help you. If someone says the winner was absolutely worthy and you're not in a good way because you lost, you might take that the wrong way. As in, oh, you're saying that I'm not worthy, when they're not saying that. On the other hand, if someone fills up your head with ideas, oh, you should absolutely have won, then you're going to start thinking things like, oh, it was rigged, I should have won, life's unfair, it's a system's fault, it's not my fault. The first thing you need to do, and again, I'm saying this from recent personal experience with a beta group that I didn't get into, you need to take, let's say, at least a few days, if not a week, off from social media and from the pageant world in general. Because the pageant world can really eat you up and can become very all-consuming. It demands your focus. You guys put in so much effort and time and your soul into it. You can't just... It's not like a tennis. It's not like the tennis industry where you go from tournament to tournament to tournament. And even those girls take rest breaks in between. You can't play all the time, otherwise you break down. Pageantry may not be as physical as a sport, but it's more emotional than most sports because, as I said, you feel like you're being judged for who you are, not on what you do. So the first thing I would say is if you take a tough loss, take some time away, take some time off before you decide on anything. Because the worst thing that you can do is make a decision as to what to do or what not to do when you're not in a good place emotionally. Now, that could be as simple as, am I going to do another pageant or not? Am I going to do the same pageant next year or not? Or it could be something such as, what do I post on social media? Now, you have to be very careful about posting on social media when you're mentally and emotionally not in a good place, because that's a very dangerous road to go down. Because sometimes people, when they're not in the right mind space, post things that they really shouldn't post. But the problem is everyone sees it. And even if you delete it, someone's probably taken a screenshot of it and sent it to the last person in the world you want to see that. That's why I'm saying take time off and take time away from the industry, whatever it is. The other thing I would say is you need to fill your life with something that gives you meaning and purpose and fulfillment outside of the pageant world. Something that you can more reliably depend on than winning in pageantry. And when I say that, I would say almost anything is more reliable than winning in pageantry. Because, again, giving the example of Miss Universe South Africa, everyone thought she was making top 20 and she didn't. So when people ask me about walk, I say, well, just walk like her. And that makes a certain amount of sense because I thought her walk was phenomenal, but she didn't get in. So, what do I know? I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Neither did you, and no member of the public ever is really going to. You never know what's really going on behind the scenes at some of these big pageants. Should that be the way it is? I don't know. That's a separate discussion. But given that you don't know, find meaning in the work that you do. This is why one of the reasons I keep badgering you guys about entrepreneurship and setting up your own business, because if you can turn your passion into a business, then that's something that you can rely on day after day, and it's giving you meaning. So you don't need the meaning, the purpose, or the validation from a pageant win. Find meaning in your relationships, whether it's your intimate relationship with your partner, with your friends, with your family. Hopefully it's a whole circle, right? So you have a supportive friend, a supportive friends, a supportive family. And if you have a partner, hopefully they're supporting you in the pageant journey. I know not all of us have the luxury of a supportive circle. In fact, very few of us do, which is where you can listen to positive podcasts or listen or read a positive book, something that gets you inspired. So if you don't have the advantage of the luxury of just having supportive people around you who get it, then you can, find people on the internet, find a mentor on the internet, find an author who just gets it, or read some sort of book, take some sort of course, listen to a podcast episode. So if you've taken a tough loss, I would say take time off. Secondly, just take that time off and reevaluate your life, but don't overanalyze it. Don't think that there's something wrong with you, because again, that's a dangerous path to go down. But it's a different thing to reevaluate your life a little bit, and that's a good thing. Making you overanalyzing your life and making yourself think that there's something wrong with you is bad. Taking the time out every now and then to reflect and just ask yourself, okay, where am I going with my life? Now that I haven't won this pageant, what's the next step? That's a very smart thing to do. So take the time off, reevaluate when you're a bit less emotional about things. I mean, the first thing you probably do is go out and party, have a few drinks, get out in nature, go for a walk, just forget the pageant world, and then sit down, reevaluate. And you might want to do this with a friend if you have the benefit of a friend who understands the pageant world, because then it's really time to sit down and go, okay, if I'm going to do this again, and you may decide not to. And by the way, I'm fully supportive of that. I'm probably one of the few pageant coaches who will say that not participating is a valid option. You don't have to do a pageant. And there are times when it really shouldn't be your focus, such as when you are mentally and emotionally fragile, or when you don't have the finances to do it. If you don't have your finances sorted, the last thing you should be doing is a pageant, because it's expensive and it doesn't really give you a concrete return on the investment. I would say sort out your finances, sort out your career. If you're in an abusive relationship, sort that out, right? I mean, you can escape from certain things doing a pageant, but I think pageant is only a priority when you have the other parts of your life not perfect by any means, but at least pretty sorted out and they're tracking well. Because I think pageantry is a luxury. It's not a necessity to your life. And I think that's where very often it can go very horribly wrong. If you are looking for that validation and for that purpose and for that meaning in your life from a pageant win, it can go very badly wrong when you don't win. Now, you might just enjoy, you might get the purpose and the motivation and the fulfillment from pageantry just from participating. In which case, go for it. Absolutely. But I got to tell you, it's happened to me more than one time when a girl has just told me, I'm just participating because I love the journey, I love meeting the girls, don't care if I win or not. And then they don't win, and then they become depressed. And my brain's going, I thought you told me you didn't care whether you won or not, but I know what's happened is you've told me one thing, but subconsciously you've believed another thing. And the subconscious is what matters. So if you are subconsciously going into pageantry to find some sort of validation, very dangerous. It's like when I was applying for the beta group, subconsciously I was applying, well, not quite the same, but certainly when I didn't get in, my subconscious belief, the problem that I had was, I'm not good enough. And if you have the other things in your life set up, so your relationships, your work, your everything, your health, your finances, if you have everything else kind of not perfect, but tracking well so that you're getting meaning and purpose and you're making progress in all those important areas, then yes, a pageant loss, an undeserved, let's call it pageant loss, sucks. But it's not going to blow you off course too badly. because you have other things in life to come back to. That you have to make sure that you set up those other things in your life as a priority. You don't get to set them up later because that will be too late. So I want you to just really ask yourself, why are you entering the pageant? And if you subconsciously, if you're really dirt honest with yourself, you go, you know what, I'm doing this, Adrian, because there's a bit of a hole in my heart or my soul. I don't quite feel worthy. I want to be a role model. I want to be this. I want to be that. And winning a pageant will do it. I'm going to ask you to really think again. Because let's say if you want to get meaning from doing charity work, I would say, well, just go do the charity work. You don't need to do a pageant, newsflash, to do charity work. Just do the charity work, right? If you're financially struggling, if you don't have your career sorted out, if your relationships are all over the place, you don't have supportive friends, you don't have supportive family, I would say there's some more grassroots work that you need to do to sort those other things out. And then there's this fine area where if you really believe that you can do a pageant, and as I said at the beginning of this piece, you can put in 100%, you can put in your heart and soul, and you can come stone cold last, and you're not going to be happy about it, but you know that you have the support network outside of yourself and inside of yourself with all the other things that you've set up in your life, as I've been saying, then go for it. Because that loss, the attitude will kind of be like, I lost. I don't like the fact that I lost. I don't think I deserve to have lost. Well, I just think I should have done better. But you know what? It's pageantry. That's the way it is. And, I've got all these other amazing things going on in my life. We'll see you next year. Or I won't see you next year. I'll do another system, whatever. That is kind of the place that you want to get to. My biggest fear, and this again is on reflection from my experience recently, is that if you're kind of hedging, putting a bit of your self-worth on the fact that you're betting your self-worth on the fact that you will win this pageant, then that's a very dangerous place to be. So take some time away, reevaluate, and then if you do think it's the right thing to go for it again, focus on the 20% that will give you the 80%. Get really, really tunnel vision on it. And I'll leave you with this. It really depends on the system you're going for. So, for example, the two biggest systems being world and universe, do you think you'd be focusing on the same things? And I got to tell you, the answer from my perspective is absolutely not. And I say this because I work with a former world title holder, and now she wants to make a run at universe. And I told her, world is so different in terms of the expectations, at least at the international level, because if you're focused on being the achiever that she is, it's not just about winning national. It's about then, representing her country on the international stage and making sure she does a really bang-up job with it. But world, for example, has many different facets. Yes, it has you on stage, but it also has sportswoman, it has the Beauty with a Purpose project, etc., etc., etc. Universe is the show. Most of it is the show. So when you're doing universe, I told her, look, world might actually have been the most opposite, in my view, to the universe pageant, because universe is all about the show, and it's still about that sexiness. As much as it might be politically incorrect to say that, it's like a Victoria's Secret show, right? So I told her, you need to double down on your stage presence, because she was a bit worried about that. And I said, look, that might have gotten you through world, but if you're going through universe, that stage presence is everything. So we got to find you someone who can really help you with that. With world, there are multiple facets to work on, so you kind of have to spread the wealth a little bit more. But you really need to make sure you got your Beauty with a Purpose project nailed down. If you want to do well, then there are ways that you can sort of not shortcut it, but if you do really well at talent, or you do really well at and different countries run it differently, so I can't sort of blanket statement, but you want to do well at talent, you want to do well at sportswomen, etc., etc., etc. So what you would focus on, even for just those two pageants, and they're the two biggest pageants in the world still to this day, and there's some of you who might compete in both, You have to focus on completely different things if you're being smart about it and if you want to give yourself the best chance of winning. Because each pageant has a different flavor. If there's a pageant that, for example, is focused 50% on your interview and 50% on your advocacy, then why would you spend any time working on your walk or spending lots of money on your wardrobe? I'm not saying you can't. It's just the same as me saying, like, if you want to go and work, if you want to go and do 100 appearances for charity because that's who you are, then do it. If you want to spend tens of thousands of dollars on your wardrobe because that's who you are, you're a fashionista, then do it. But give away this delusion that in doing it, you are giving yourself a greater chance of winning the pageant. Because you have to be smarter and less emotional than that. I think there's a narrative going around in pageantry that's very dangerous, which is saying that, you know, to win a pageant, you have to be well-spoken, you have to be a good role model, you have to be good on stage, you have to be this, you have to be that. It's not true for every system. If your system is completely based on stage and has nothing to do with advocacy, there's no interview, and no substantial interview, or at least, then just work on the on-stage part. And yes, I want you to still be a good person, but not every system, and you know this inherently, which is why the narrative kind of bothers me. Every system rewards different components, different parts of you in different proportion. So if you want to be smart about this, and look, this is after I said, if you decide you want to make another run at it, after you've had a crushing defeat, the best thing I think you can do, apart from the other stuff I told you, like take time away, reevaluate, but the best and smartest thing you can do is approach it really intelligently and strategically, and not just run in with this naive, blind view that, oh, if I'm the best person that I can be, then they're going to see that I'm going to win. No, that's not. It's so subjective, pageantry. You running into a pageant, your next pageant, with just that naive kind of, I'm the best I can be and they'll see that, so I'll win, that really makes me very worried. At least if you care about the winning, as I said. If you're not there for the winning, and no part of your self-worth is based on whether you win or not, then you wouldn't be actually listening anymore to this episode, because you wouldn't have a crushing defeat, because your self-worth wasn't based on how well you did. But, as I said, there's so many of you who tell me you don't care whether you win or not, and then when you don't win, you get upset. Now, that's a problem. Someone's not telling me the truth there, right? And I'm not judging you, because it's not a conscious thing, it's a subconscious thing. So bear that all in mind. And if you've taken a tough loss, as I said, take time away, reevaluate, and then strategize. Get really, really intelligent. Pick which system you think works best for you. And if there's a system that you just really want to go for, what is the scoring criteria, and what's the 20% that you know that you really need to over-index on, and spend 80% of your time or 100% of your time on those major areas, whether it's stage presence or interview or whatever it is. And then that way you give yourself the best chance of winning. I'm going to leave it there because it's gotten very dark again, and there are people walking by on their evening walks. I don't know why they walk so close to the car. I'm kind of, because it throws me off, because they're kind of looking in to see what I'm doing. I'm like, if I saw someone filming, I would give them a lot of space. But I think in Australia, we're still not used to seeing content creators out and about filming themselves. I can tell you this doesn't happen in America, the strange looks, because anyway, that's a story for another day. I hope this helps. If you have any issues, or you need guidance through a tough loss, or you need guidance on what system to take up next, then head to thepageantboss.com or send me a DM, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you before you book in for a session. But take care, have a great day, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Hey, it's Adrian again. Thanks for listening to this episode. Just a quick reminder to come and join our private Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/thepageantboss. You're going to be getting early access, special offers and discounts to all our upcoming products, courses and events. So make sure you head there now. It's free to join for the moment at facebook.com/groups/thepageantboss. And remember, the link to join is in the show notes to this episode. So click that link, join our group, and I'll speak to you in the next episode of the Pageant Boss podcast.